This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session. Before we start, please note that this session is purely for your learning purposes and does not entice or encourage you to invest or participate in the financial markets. I am not a SEBI registered analyst, and all the information provided here is for your learning purposes only. Since derivatives markets, especially, are very risky, where there is a risk of partial or total capital erosion, please consult with a registered financial advisor before you make any kind of investments into the markets. So welcome all once again to this session. First, we'll be discussing about Nifty and Bank Nifty using volume profile and order flow analysis, and then I'll be taking your questions with respect to volume analysis if you have any. At any point of time, if you have any question, feel free to drop in into the chat, but please make sure that you type in the complete message and ask your question as clearly as possible, because I cannot understand one or two worded questions. So this was a special week where we had a trading session on a weekend as well, and after a positive open, the session we started sliding down and saw quite some volatility, especially in the expiry based indices, which is your BankX. So looking back at Nifty on how Nifty did this week, and what am I expecting from Nifty in the coming few sessions, let's first have our weekly profiles in line. The reason why I like to use weekly profiles a lot is because even though I'm a short-term trader and I'm primarily a day trader, if I look at the weekly profiles, this helps me understand the broad context of the markets. We'll be directly talking about volume profiles here for the basic purpose and use of VP. I have already taken a session before. It's present on the YouTube channel of Go Charting. Please check it out, and we'll be also sharing the link after this session. So if you look at the weekly profile of the current week, we during this week we saw that there was a good down move thanks to the results of HDFC Bank, which was not in line, and we did see a good amount of supply coming in, even if though it may not be the cost, but we surely did see the effect of it. And we did see some retracement as well. Now, when you look at the volume distribution, when you look at the profile structure, you see that the value area of the current week is present in this zone. What does that imply? Also with a close inside your value area right at the point of control. This tells that a higher activity and institutional participants, broad market participants showed a lot of interest in this area between 21,400 odd levels to 21,800 levels. Going forward for the next week, let assuming that we open within the range of the previous week, uh, next week as well, this is going to be a very important reference. So 21,856 to 21,450 is a very important reference. Even in the week before that, what we saw was uh, weak supply, and even the buying was not strong. It was mainly a short covering move that we had seen in the previous week, because if you see, for a large extent of the week, this is where your value was placed, and then when there was an up move, there was no value area migration. So when you look at the markets, for example, if I see an up move and in an initial up move from a downsided area and then a continued up move, and this is where my value area is initially, then in this continued up move I would like to see a value area shift to the upside, because this shows that there is certain amount of interest and intent in the continued up move. Or else, if that move is purely due to short covering, then on a overnight basis or a positional basis, that's not a move which has a higher probability of sustaining in this market. The reason why I say this is because, say, if a participant uh, takes a long trade, if a large player takes a long trade at 21,500 levels and the market is at 21,900, and then we start coming down, this guy who has bought at 21,500 will see no reason to defend this down move until the market comes to this area. right? So in such cases, it is not whenever I see that a particular move is happening without a migration in value area, at least on the lower time frames or the higher time frames, that is not the kind of a move which I would like to chase with a lot of intent. Most of the people can see me. If you cannot see my screen, then please exit and join the meeting once again. Are these volume profiles weekly? Yes, these are my weekly volume profiles. So looking over at the fact that we had a short covering move at the end of last week, when we started cracking down, these buyers who were actually present in the lows who triggered, and then these sellers had to run for cover. These buyers were not showing a lot of interest until pivot lows were broken. So now if I look at the markets at the same structure, we did see a certain amount of supply coming in at the same area where sellers were forced to exit in the last week. So going forward for me now, the 21,856 value for the upside to be bullish on the markets on an overnight basis is going to be very important for me as a trader. I will only look to attempt overnight long positions if the market takes out 21,856 and we see buying coming in order flow. If not, there is a good chance that we can again come down and test 21,450 levels. If at all we see a day's closing and then the break of the low, there is also a high probability this low gets broken. Any questions so far? Anyone, any queries? So now that we have a broad bias and a broad structure from a weekly volume profile perspective, now here comes the question of point of control. A lot of traders keep asking me, what is the role of point of control, or why don't I look much at point of control? When I look at profile structures where my point of control is right in the middle of the profile, and then that's not a POC to which I give a lot of importance, because your POC is the single point where highest volumes have been traded. So it's just one single price point. In this case, it is 21,662. Say there are large players who are trying to drive the markets in a particular way, and just because a certain number of transactions happen at this particular point, do you think someone who's into the markets with such deep pockets, such large pockets, when you see that the majority of the demand is flowing in or majority of the supply is flowing in from a particular market participant in a certain direction, do you think they are going to be bothered by price breaching up and down at one single price point? No. For me, it is always POC plus value area. Unless POC is aligning with value area plus the closing, unless these three things are aligning in one single direction, for me, I don't give a lot of importance to point of control as much as I give to value area extremes. So at this point, since we have a certain understanding of the markets from a weekly perspective, if we move on to our daily charts, what does daily charts tell you? We already have our references on a weekly basis. Let's go to 15 minutes. And when you look at your daily charts, again, this was, I shared a important piece of information yesterday. So we saw a P-shape profile and then the markets inching up. So, and then we saw a balance profile here. So in such cases, when I see that, for example, Thursday was a clean P-shaped profile for me, and then we saw that there was a certain balance and rotation in the markets. What these buyers these buyers had one job. We saw quite some demand coming in. These buyers had one job, which is to defend their areas of buying, which they did successfully on Friday. So once this happens, what I look out for is the after after a P or a B shape, if I see a balance structure, both in terms of price balance and profile balance, then this balance lows and highs become very important for me. For example, if you look at today's profile structure, just a second. So if you look at today's profile structure, we had an opening above previous days high, previous days balance structures, value area high as well, but there was no significant demand that was seen at open today. Of course, today is also an exceptional session where we had a session on weekend. If you look at order flow, this is my order flow chart for today, my footprint chart. If you look at footprint chart, I don't see any kind of demand in this kind of opening, because usually when I see a P-shaped structure and then a balanced structure, there is always a good probability that the trend will continue to the upside. If it's a B-shaped structure, a down move, and then a balance for me, then there is a good chance that the trend will continue to move lower. And especially when there is a gap up opening in case one or a gap down opening in case two, then that is even that will give a trader even more confidence that the move is going to continue. Sure, we had a crucial supply area to the upside. This is where strong supply started coming in 820 to 860 odd levels, but the way we opened today, the structure was in favor for bulls to a certain extent. The bare minimum that buyers could have done at this point was at least take the price to 21,800, which was the real challenge. But right at open, they failed. If I look at my footprint charts, I don't see any demand here. These are my opening bars, opening 15 minutes worth of bars. I don't see any kind of demands. When I look at the numbers, when I look at where my ask side POC is positioned, where my bid side, especially my ask side POC is positioned in an up move. In an up move, I always look at my ask POC a lot. And in a down move, I look at my bid POC, bid side POC. My ask side point of control is situated somewhere in the tail of the candle. Doesn't give a lot of confidence that this up move is going to continue or hold up after the kind of opening that we saw today, which was indeed true. Even we are not seeing any imbalances in this in the opening 15 minutes. Sure, there is one, two odd imbalances, but again, this is in a drive down move. In this up move, there are no imbalances. So this is not the kind of tape, this is not the kind of volume flow that actually gives me confidence to attempt longs. As I said, the bare minimum that I would have expected from the markets today after an opening that is in the favor of bulls is that we test at least 21,820 to 21,860, 70 odd levels in futures, but did not happen. So right now, and if you look at what happened throughout the day, one, the volumes were not as much as we would like to see. That's a different story. It was a tad bit lower, but especially this down move that we saw at 240, this is a bar where we saw a decent amount of selling coming into play in Nifty futures here. So right now, for me, when I look at the overall structure for from a Monday perspective, I have my weekly value area high resistance to the upside, and apart from that, the entire area where supply started coming in. Initiative selling started after a gap down the previous week. For next week, this week would be the previous week. Plus, we also have today's high where bulls should have made an attempt to lift the bids up, lift the asks up, but they failed. So when I have these kind of references very close by, plus also today's POC. Now today's POC becomes important because it is closely aligned to a point from where bulls had a chance to lift prices up, but buying failed. There was an absence of buying. So when I have so many references close by, that is I have my weekly value area high, plus I have my supply zone, plus I also have today's value area high and point of control. Now it's not looking very bullish to me at this point of time. So even if we get an up move, that's going to be very slow and very in a very grinding fashion that the bulls are going to take the markets up. So unless we see a gap up or I see that the markets are moving beyond this area, 21,870 is the bare minimum. I am of the opinion that I personally have a bias. I will be having a bias in my positions to look for down moves along with certain rotations in the market. At a strong continued down move, I would be expecting after this area is taken out. Any questions so far? Anyone, any queries? No. All right. Now, when I look at Bank Nifty's profile, let's again go to weeklies. So this is my weekly profile. Again, a same case, a clean case of distribution, more evident here than Nifty. In fact, there wasn't even any attempt made by buyers here in Bank Nifty is being seen. So this week we had a gap down opening and a continued down move. My profile structure is also a distribution profile with a close little above my point of control. We are still inside the value area. So in such cases, in cases like this is what I said, that I need to see my point of control plus value area plus closing price aligned for me to use POC effectively. So in this case, if I see this is my POC and I have my value area right to the downside. So we have a B-shaped profile structure and my POC is to the downside but price closed up. So this becomes a, even though the current context is downsided for me, that Bank Nifty is weaker and I would need to see the presence of fresh buyers. Right now, my opinion is at the end of Saturday. But on Tuesday, if I see fresh buying coming into the markets, then there would be a change in my bias. There would be a change in my opinion. But until that doesn't happen, I am of the bias that this is a strong support. The entire area of 45,700 to 45,650 to 45,800 is a good support area for me at this point. But in a downtrending market, in a distribution profile, we saw that the closing is above POC and POC is to the lows. So if some buying comes in Bank Nifty next week, if buyers just manage to maintain their hold on Tuesday, at least for the opening 1 hour, and then we see some buying coming in, there is a decent chance that a lot of shorts would get trapped in this area and once we start moving up. But the context is still to the downside as of now. And if at all we start taking down these lows, then I'm expecting Bank Nifty to be more weaker compared to Nifty. Anyone, any questions? Ramakrishna, how market area? See, this is exactly what I meant. If you don't ask me clear questions, then don't expect answers from me. How to identify if it's a buyer market through order flow, for how long we want to see if buyer is dominating. See, to understand if through order flow, if it's a buyer's market and if buyers are actually initiating strong buying or if there is supply coming in, the first thing that you need to look at is the structure of the markets. And to understand structure, I personally use volume profiles, and you can also use market profile, you can also use CPR, you can also use pivot points, could be anything, but you need to have a very strong understanding of one of these four concepts. Once you have clarity on what is the structure of the market, where are we positioned, and what happened before here earlier, that is when you look at order flow and see both the bid and the ask side. Now, these are my daily profiles. If I look at daily profiles, then again the same thing which was reinforced through looking at weekly profiles is also evident here, that these lows, this area is indeed go, going to provide a good support for Bank Nifty. We saw on Thursday that it's a B profile lower close, and again on Friday that even on Friday's case we saw a lower close and POCs at the same point, overlapping POCs. So right now quite there are quite some shorts loaded in this area by market participants. If at all, as I said, the market Bank Nifty holds up on a Tuesday for an hour or hour and a half, and then some buying starts coming in, or even we retest this area and this holds, then there is a good and we move up, there is a good chance that we can see certain amount of short covering here. So as much as the trend, the context is to the downside, we are through price seeing literally 3 days of balance here. In case of Bank Nifty, all the 3 days we saw balance, and this is not VP balance, this is price balance, but volume profile is indicating a weak intent of sellers at this point. For example, through the B-shaped profile, but then a close outside, the next day gap up, weak intent of sellers. Anyone, any other questions? Voice is not clear. Umesh, please join once again and check your volume settings. So when will the market context be considered bullish above value area high or high? See, if someone, let's switch back to our weekly profiles, but before that, for example, if you look at Bank Nifty today, the action in Bank Nifty and BankX was different, excuse me, compared to what we saw in Nifty to a certain extent. So in this case, in case of Bank Nifty, today's high is important reference. So if I am an aggressive participant, if I would like to take positions on early, then about today's high, what kind of open we have about today's high on Tuesday is very important. So if we see a gap up opening, then I would like to see certain amount of buying coming in and through order flow. So if you look at the 310 bar, this is a kind of bar that I would like to see in order flow come through at a gap up open. Or if it's a flat open and we start testing previous day's lows or previous day's value area highs or previous day's close, then I would like to see some buying coming, some sign of evidence that it's not just identifying zones and looking at the zones, marking these zones, but once you start identifying areas of price where there is a chance where you understand that important activity can happen, has happened in the past, you need to look for signs of important activity again. For example, if you look at the 310 bar, this is a classic example of buyers stepping in through order flow, even though the volumes, as I said, were relatively lower. A classic example of how buyers are overpowering sellers here, and there is a certain degree of aggressive market buying that has happened. Is that clear? How do you know if it's IB buying or passive buying, Jai Dupar? Jai, actually explain the entire intricacies of how, whether it's initiative buying, whether it's market buying or passive buying, market selling or passive selling, that's practically not possible in a single session. But don't worry, I'll be covering that later, and you will get access. You will be a part of those sessions. How to find supply and demand zone in intraday? Again, a very broad question. So supply and demand, as I always say, is based on the volume of stock, volumes that are being traded. I don't look at price and blindly classify it as my supply or demand. For me, it is volume that actually drives, that triggers price, and volume is what decides whether a particular area has supply or demand in it. So say you start using volume profile. The simplest way to use volume profile is to use daily profiles every day. At the end of the day, look at the profile shape plus closing price, mark value areas and point of control, and then monitor price activity next day at these levels. So all you need to check is, see if we are opening within on the next day, are we opening within today's range, or we are opening with a gap up or a gap down, and then you see what kind of price reaction are we seeing. Say if we open beyond today's range, then today's volume profile references are not going to be that helpful for you. That is when you start focusing on weekly profiles, or you look, or you primarily focus on order flow to see what kind of activity are you seeing in the markets once we open beyond today's range. Is that clear? Please explain with OI profile along with volume profile. When I'm using volume profile, I don't tend to look a lot at OI profile. I look at order flow, which gives me much more real-time data than OI profile. Is developing value area during intraday of any significance? Honestly, not much, because as a day trader, I don't look at my developing value area of current day. Since, say, for example, for you, the markets open at every day, the markets open at 9:15, and let us say today we are somewhere at 10:15. And if you are looking at the value area solely of today, and you are giving it more weightage than the value area of previous day, then it's not right, because yesterday's value area is an established zone. Yesterday's value area marks 6+ hours of trading activity and volume activity. So we can't simply give more weightage to a current day zone which is only 1 hour old over a zone which is already established of previous day. So that's why I tend to focus more on my most immediate period, previous periods volume profile. And if I have to look at the current periods profile, say current day's volume profile, then I would at least wait for the first half of the session to be done 12:31, and then see if it is of any importance. I look, if we are seeing any pullback into the market from the into the morning area, sorry, then I tend to look into the current periods profile. And that's also the same for the current week. Say on Monday, it doesn't make sense for me to look at the current week's volume profile because it's just one day. I'd rather look at the current week's volume profile, say on a Thursday or on a Friday there, if needed. Hope that's clear, Adarsh. Anyone else? Any other questions with respect to volume profile and order flow? Manas, to address your question, I'll share my contact post this session. Please reach out to me and I'll share certain resources with you. Now, so when we look at one alternate way of looking at markets is through the use of my proprietary indicator order flow search. Again, the name order flow search uh, tells that the job of this particular tool, you see these certain symbols here, they don't provide buy sell signals, but they identify areas of high institutional activity where one particular participant's activity has been overpowered. Say for example, if a particular trader is coming with 1,000 lots of market buy every once in every 5 ticks, and all of this is being absorbed, that becomes a very important activity. It's not just a large volume coming in, but that large volume on one side being overpowered by participants on the other side. That's primarily what order flow search detects, what happens behind the candlesticks that's not visible to candlesticks. So this is my proprietary tool, and quite a few traders use it for their analysis on a day-to-day basis. So for example, if you look at the today's bar at 11:45, this is the first bar where we got the signal. The signal is can be seen right with the low of the candle, this bar. And then these bars basically act as crucial references point where there is a high probability of identifying whether day high or day low has already been established in a particular day's context using order flow search. And older references of order flow surges act as crucial support or resistance areas into the markets. So if anyone is interested in getting access to these tools and the learning material that goes on with how to identify, how to read into data analysis using order flow search, they can reach out to me. 3 and 3 5 candles in terms of delta. Uh, we have a question from Shivshankar Das. 3 and 1 but up more cause 995. Interpret these two candles. I don't look at delta when I look at order flow. Delta is one of the most misinterpreted and misused parameters. There are certain areas, there are certain price points in the markets where delta is useful, but day-to-day basis, looking at delta and looking at a certain number in delta is not a wise idea, because liquidity of the markets keep changing, the numbers will keep changing. The volume that will that came in bank nifty when bank nifty was at 30,000 is different than the volume that's coming in bank nifty when it's at 45 46 thousand odd levels, and in the future if it goes to 60 70,000, then the volume is going to be different there. Okay, which time frame is good to trade order flow on an intraday basis? I personally use 5 minutes time frame to for my analysis using order flow on an intraday basis. Someone asked about order flow use for positional trading. I personally don't use order flow for positional analysis, because it's a tool that has been primarily developed for intraday, not for positional, not on a positional basis. Anyone, any other questions? Does order flow search work on all assets? Yes, as long as an instrument is liquid enough, the pressure of market participants on one side being absorbed or exhausted by the other side can be detected, and order flow search works. All right. I see no further questions. Angad, do you have anything to add? What's the price of order flow search, or do we get it in co-charting subscription? This is a subscription-based tool. Since it's my proprietary indicator, there is a separate subscription charge for it. So those who are interested can reach out to me. Let me unmute you.
Hey guys, so after this webinar is over, kindly check the Discord channel, the Telegram channel to get Katie's Telegram link. So if you have any other further questions, you can always leave a question on his Telegram channel if that's okay, Katie, like last time.
Yeah, sure. And also one more thing, since these sessions are particularly held for your understanding and for your learning, so if there is something that you would like me to cover, and we are going to have these sessions on a regular basis, at least once a week. So if you have any questions, if you want me to explain certain things, and please let me know, please let Angad know, and I'll do my best to make sure that it is explained to you.
Yes, guys. If you can message me your the topics that you find difficult to understand, as well as certain things that you might need help with, right? Just leave a line on Telegram at Go Charting Admin or Sniper Trader, either one. You can check my Telegram ID on the Go Charting what Telegram group. Okay, the where I post these links. Another thing is we will be starting regular webinars, not only for order flow, but or market profile, volume profile, but also in general to discuss various hidden features of Go Charting from Monday. So we've got option charts, historical option charts. We are soon releasing ratio charts. A lot of new functionality and new features are coming to our platform, and they are being currently tested, but I think we'll be ready to push them in the production environment. So you'll start seeing new features early next week, so stay tuned. If you've muted the Go Charting channel, unmute it, because now we'll be conducting regular webinars Monday to Friday every day. Maybe we might have less webinars in the initial first week, just for us to get warmed up and get used to this calendar. But eventually, the plan is to have one webinar every day where you learn uh, unique features about Go Charting, and the second webinar. So there will be two kinds of webinars every week. One would be to understand whoever are newcomers to the platform would want to understand the platform much in a deeper manner and get an overview of all the functionalities and what they do. And the other webinar will be solely focused on order flow profiles. Okay, so keep that in mind, keep a watch on our channels, and leave a comment here if you like this webinar. Leave a comment on Twitter. You can find Katie's Twitter or Go Charting's Twitter, and just leave your honest feedback over there. Okay, and we'll take it forward from there then. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Angad. Thank you all for joining this session. Have a good weekend and extended weekend this time, in fact, and see you all.
See you guys. Bye bye.